Welcome back to another Saxton podcast. Music to our ears, Deuce. How you doing today?
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting the music, but that just brought a big smile to my face.
It's the signal of a real golf season, and spring is here, and obviously one of the best tournaments of the year.
Yeah, besides the Ryder Cup, this is my favorite sporting event of the year.
We've done a lot of pods. Obviously was excited to do the first, but I don't know if I've ever been excited to do one like this.
Yeah, usually we do the text exchange with topics, ideas. But this time there was an official email, and I think that just shows you how important this is.
Yeah, I originally said it for 1:30. I got caught in a little traffic, and in that traffic I thought of some other topics that I'm going to throw at you. Nothing that you need research on.
Was the traffic left over from the Villanova party?
It could be. Quickly, just give me your thoughts on that. We'll do that right now. 2 minutes on that.
Maybe the best title game ever, one of the best college basketball games ever, just from an excitement level. The refs tried to ruin it a little bit in the first half, especially. The amount of foul calls were insane to me that they wouldn't let some of that go. But man, the second half was awesome. Two of the most unbelievable shots I've seen. Just hard by both teams. It was awesome. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, I can't add much. I actually went back and watched a lot of it again last night. Two things I have for you. One thing that really stuck out was in the first half, Villanova had so much trouble inbounding the ball under their own basket. There must have been 3 or 4 times where they threw a touchdown pass deep just to get the ball in bounds. And on the last play of the game, nobody's guarding the inbounder.
Yeah, it's hard to, hindsight is always right, but it's hard not to criticize that last play, the inbounds especially, just to force them to, take a couple side steps. Because usually if you get the ball in with some pressure, you still have to move laterally before you can just start going.
Right.
So that takes you, let's just say a dribble equals a second. That's already a second gone from the clock. And then they kind of let them have a free run down the court, which again, you're letting them maximize their time. And then, I could be wrong, but I think that was the same exact play they ran at the end of the first half against Kansas. And I don't know how you're not prepared for that handoff play.
Yeah, the other thing was arguably their most athletic player in college basketball, Bryce Johnson, is nowhere in the play. He's got to be guarding somebody other than nobody.
Yeah, that one, I'm not sure what. Coach Miller probably has a better perspective on this than I do. If there's a backdoor cutter or someone's cutting to the hoop and he's not there, then you're going to blame him for not being there. And then now that no one's there, he gets blamed for guarding nobody. I actually thought Jackson was the one who needed to step up on Arch and Jenkins there. He kind of just stood in the middle of space. But, that's a hard play to stop in the moment, I guess.
And then I think we exchanged texts. The biggest play of the game had to be right before half. Carolina has a layup to go up 9. Hart makes the block, and Booth comes down and hits a foul line jumper at the horn to make it 5. A huge 4-point swing.
Enormous, I think is what you said, and I don't think it can be overstated. That was just such a big swing with momentum going into halftime.
I meant to chart it last night when I rewatched it, how many times Archie Diacono and Brunson were down in the post just fronting the Carolina bigs, and they couldn't get the ball to them. So
I guess you put that on the passers or the coach, because you probably should go over that in the game plan, how to get the ball into your post players if you're being fronted. But it's the guards, like you said, they fell in love with a jump shot because they made some earlier. But even in the first half, when they were being fronted, they were so reluctant to throw the ball inside or penetrate to open up some space inside. It was bizarre, is the word I would use. That because you see that in 8th grade.
Yeah, I agree.
It's weird because high school you have those type of size mismatches all the time, and coaches they got to figure out a way to guard bigs.
Yeah, I agree. Good tournament, great championship game. I really fell in love with watching Villanova play and the way they play defense, and I thought a fantastic job by Jay Wright throughout, who I've been very critical of.
Yeah, I was always indifferent on Wright, but happy for him that he kind of sheds that label of choker / can't win the big one.
Well, now that we got that out of the way, your excitement level right now, as we're hours away from the opening tee shots.
It's pretty high, can't lie. Maybe one of the more excited I've been in a while. It's probably because the weather's so crappy that I can't go out and play and kill time. I'm stuck inside just counting down the hours and having to do real work. But I'm excited. Even as a Tiger fan, he was always a huge favorite, but this year it just seems like there's so many guys that are playing at a high level. I can't remember a year where it was so top-heavy yet wide open, if that makes sense.
Before we get in depth with the breakdown, what are you hearing weather-wise? What are you expecting with the wind?
All right, so biggest question of the week for me, and you'll probably see 100 different forecasts if you're watching the Golf Channel or ESPN or whatever. I don't watch their weather forecasts. I go into the weather sites that I like to use. I don't think we'll see rain during the actual play. Maybe for the first couple tee times on Thursday, but I don't think so. The wind is the bigger factor. It looks like a steady 10 to 15 both Thursday, Friday mornings. 15 to 20, gusts up to 25 in both afternoons, and all day on Saturday. Now, wind is fickle, though, so 10 miles an hour wind, if you're playing golf, big difference between gusts of 25. So I think that's a huge variable. It's very hard to predict. You could have a forecast where they say from 12 to 6, winds 10 to 20, but after 4 o'clock, they start to die. So I think it's something that's not going to be able to be predicted very well.
I'm glad you mentioned the time. Typically, when we look at the British, there's the guys that go out in the morning, Thursday, afternoon, Friday. It seems somebody always seems to have the advantage. Do you think we're going to see that this weekend on Thursday and Friday, depending which grouping you go out in?
Good point. And I think at this tournament, more than any other, it hurts the big-name players because the field is smaller. The window for TV is smaller. That they always group the big names together and they stick them out typically in the latest windows possible. So, for example, Rory, last group on Thursday this year, and then his tee time on Friday, usually it's early, late, early, is 11-something. So it's not that early. He's not getting the benefit of going out last on Thursday, maybe in the bad winds, but then getting early Friday morning tee times, getting when the greens are perfect. He doesn't get that in this tournament. So tougher for the big names. I'm not sure there's going to be a big draw advantage for the bigger names. There could be some for, the lesser-known guys like a Paul Casey, something like that, who gets an earlier tee time on Friday.
Temperatures okay this weekend?
Cool. I'm not going to say cold because most of us are still battling, grinding, cold weather. But Friday morning, Saturday morning especially, in that area especially, it's going to be pretty cold and they're not going to be used to it. I'd probably say coldest there since 2007, if you remember when Zach Johnson won at +1. I think you'll see morning temperatures especially be down near 40, which is cold for down there.
It seems like, with what you said about the weather, it seems like the winning score is usually between 10 and 13. Obviously, you had Spieth go a little lower. Tiger years back went lower. Do you expect the winning score to be in that 10 to 13 range?
I actually am going to go, I think it's going to be a little tougher this year. I think they did not like seeing the 18 under last year. Even second place was 14 or 15 under. I think it was 14, Justin Rose. I don't think they like to see that. Early reports say the greens are faster already earlier in the week than they were during the tournament last year. Now, hopefully, Wednesday night tonight, it doesn't rain too much. They're calling for some rain. It's only a 60% chance, so hopefully it's just a little bit, and the greens will be lightning all week. With the wind and fast greens, I think we'll see something maybe, I would say right now between 6 and 8 would be my range, 6, 7, 8, right in there.
Do you expect, with the wind, despite the rain, that the fairways are going to be playing pretty hard with some run out?
Yeah, that's a good point. Even if it does rain, if the winds pick up, especially earlier on Thursday, I think you'll see it dry out pretty quick. Hard fairways and, the greens hard as rocks with the slope. I think you'll see them dry out even more come Friday and Saturday. If I had to pick a day that's going to be the toughest, I think Saturday will play the toughest.
Any changes Augusta's made to any of the holes or any of the setup this year that you're hearing?
No changes. Billy Payne had his press conference this morning. He said no material changes to the golf course. They are looking at some changes for the future. He would not go into detail. I think we all know kind of what those are at this point. So we'll have to see going forward, but none this year.
Anything you're hearing from the players on the way the course is playing through 2 practice rounds and any of the guys who came a little earlier than Monday?
Yeah, similar comments across the board. Fast. The green's faster than usual for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think Bubba said he played a practice round on Tuesday, and the greens were faster on Tuesday than they were on Sunday of last year's tournament. And it's greener than it has been in years. I guess they had a good growing season, a relatively decent winter, so it'll probably pop off your TV screen.
Changes were made to the course that seemed to have suited the lefties. What were those changes that prompted the run of lefties winning? And do you expect those changes to play out again this year?
Yeah, there's people debate this. Was the course tiger-proofed or not? I don't really think it's debatable. The last 15 years, 16 years, it's pretty apparent that there's one profile of the player that it fits. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule, right? People get hot. These are pros. They can shape it both ways. It's not like Rory McIlroy can't hit a fade or draw. It's just usually golfers are more comfortable hitting one type of shot. And for most people, a fade is easier to hit than a draw and easier to control. Left-handers, a fade is a right-to-left shot. Tee shots on 2, 5, 9, 10, 13, all of them move pretty good right to left. It's easier to just free wheel it and hit a fade. Land softer, makes the fairways a little wider. Sometimes if you overcook a hook, bad things can happen. I can attest to that myself. And even some of the second shots at 11, the creek is on the left of the hole. Much easier to hit a little fade if you're a lefty into that green than it is a righty trying to play a draw to hard green. 12, same thing. Easier to land a ball on the green softly with a fade than it is a draw. Basic stuff like that. But really, the tee shots are what sets up for left-handers. If you go back to 14, I'm sure you remember the tee shot from Bubba where it looked like he had pushed it into the woods. And he just flew it 360 over the creek because he's a lefty and the fade landed softly. I think it's pretty apparent now that the golf course favors that right-to-left shot.
With that being said, who does this favor as far as the righties go? Or what strengths, what kind of ball striker are you looking at with these changes?
The wind is a little concerning to me. If they're playing in normal conditions, a guy like Bubba, Adam Scott, Rory, Jason Day, all the best players in the world. The Masters has a very good track history of bringing the best out and the best players, and the leaderboard usually reflects that. Guys that hit it high have had a ton of success here. Now that's kind of the problem with with picking this week is that if it's windy you don't really want the guy that hits the high ball. But if it's not windy, the high ball is a huge advantage coming into these greens. But if you want some righties that hit it right to left or are comfortable hitting it right to left, Jason Day's comfortable hitting it right to left. Adam Scott's comfortable. Rory predominantly hits a draw. Jordan Spieth can hit a draw. There aren't a ton of lefties that hit draws. Bubba hits the fade, which is perfect. Phil hits the fade, which is perfect. But if you have to pick some right-handers that hit a draw and it's not windy, Zach Johnson, Brant Snedeker, those type of guys, I would try to stay away from if the wind does not become that big of a factor.
Some questions for you before we get into some of the players we're looking at. Rapid fire. You obviously are as knowledgeable as anybody about golf. So some inside questions from you. Is this your favorite major?
By far.
Your top 3 to 5 Masters shots you've ever seen?
Well, I'm going to stay recent. I could go back in history of the stuff I've seen on tape, but I'm going to stay in my era with these. I think we all remember where we were when Tiger hit the chip on 16 in 2005. I know we were together for that, so you remember that one pretty well.
Yeah, noise violation at 6 o'clock.
It's just to hit that type of shot at the moment that he had to have it with someone breathing down his neck, basically to win, I think that's got to go down as the best to me. 2 others, Phil, 2010 on 13.
Through the trees.
207 in between some pine trees in a typical Phil fashion. He went for it, pulled it off, and the rest is history there. And then I already talked about it, but I think it speaks to what the golf course has become and sadly where it's going. Bubba's tee shot on 13 in 2014. When he left the club face, people thought it was in the creek. But instead, he was 365 in the middle of the fairway, and he had a wedge into the par 5. So I think that's a pretty important shot in the history of the golf course.
Your favorite Masters year?
This was a tough one. 97, I think, just because of how young and how dominant he was with Tiger, just kind of in the history of the game, I think that's going to go down as one of the best because he's changing the golf course essentially right there, and nobody had a chance. And everyone forgets that he shot 40 on the front 9, which is just insane. And then 2013, Adam Scott, Angel Cabrera. There were just so many good shots hit that year. I just remember that one pretty well. Maybe it was the company I was with, but I thought that was a great last 2 hours of golf.
Favorite hole at Augusta?
I mean, there's not a bad one, right? I kind of, everyone's going to go to 12 and stuff like that, and that's a great hole. But I kind of like the holes at the turn. I like 9, 10, 11. I think those are really good holes. 15 is an awesome hole. I particularly like 9 and 10. I like the downhill tee shot around the corner on 9. I think you get some awesome TV shots of the second shot into that green. And then 10, same thing, downhill hooking tee shot into that tough green. I think those are 2 great holes.
Any changes you would make to the Masters or you hope to see as we move forward here?
This is such a tough one. I just wrote a question mark to this. It's so good the way it is. I hope they keep the concession prices the same because from what I've seen, they're crazy low for sporting events. I love the small field. I keep hearing questions from the media about, when are you going to invite more people? Are you going to give invites to X, Y, and Z in the future? I hope they keep it small, keep it the way it is. I used to have a gripe with the television coverage, but I think I've grown to like it. And I just hope they don't mess with the golf course. I think that's the only thing I would change is that I think they're going to make changes, and I would change that.
Typically, when you watch the par 3 contest, I added this question, so this will be a spur-of-the-moment answer from you. When you see the par 3 contest, they show everybody come down 9 because their caddy hits the shot. You're in the par 3 contest. Who's your caddy?
That's a good question, and I think there's only one answer to that, and that's Johnny Miller. Not sure there's a better caddy on earth than Coach Johnny Miller. He would be calm. He would keep it fun and light. You know, it's a par 3 contest. There's kids running around, but then there'd be part of them that wants to win too.
So there's the clip of Jay Wright on the sidelines. When Jenkins hit that shot, you could see his lips say bang. Would we be able to see Johnny Miller say Ray Cook as he hits his putt on 9?
Ray Cook. I think if I was lining up a putt, those would be his exact words because I'd be shaking. That's all he would say. He'd whisper it probably.
Oh, God. Well,
Ray Cook.
I'm glad you brought up 97, and I'm glad the changes came up. This was one of the things that I thought of as I was coming home to do this podcast with you. I sent you about a half page of notes, and none of these anywhere said the words Tiger Woods. How different is it that there's been very little talk of Tiger this week?
It is weird, and I wasn't sure he was going to show up, but he was at the Champions dinner last night, and for some reason, I saw a picture. I was like, man, it's like really good to see him smiling. It's really good to see him there with all the greats because he's, you know, that's where he deserves to be. I hope he comes back. I think it'd be really fun to see him make one last run. And I just wouldn't be shocked if he made some kind of Jack Nicklaus type of run at age 45, 46.
Looking back 3 years ago, he won 5 times in the midst of swing changes and some of the personal stuff he was going through. There was some injuries that he was experiencing as well. It seems now that he's taking time off to let these injuries heal. Looking back, do you think winning 5 times hindered a comeback or some of his career? Do you think if he maybe won once or didn't win at all, maybe he would have just took the time off then?
Never really thought about that, but I think that's a good point. Especially his Players' Championship win in 13. I think that is kind of, he never liked that golf course, and he didn't have a ton of success there before that. And winning there, I think he thought, man, I don't even have my best stuff, and I can still beat these guys. So yeah, I think this time he's doing the smart thing. He's going to take a long time off. I think he realizes now that he wasted a few years of his career by thinking that way, and you only get 4 chances a year for what he wants at this point. So I think so.
With some of the injuries he went through, I just want your opinion on this, and I'm not trying to throw any accusations out there. With what we know now, it seems like he's experiencing more and more injuries, and it could be because he's getting older. But do you think that there's any credence to the Dr. Galea talk that perhaps he was on HGH or some sort of steroid throughout to stay healthy or to recover?
I could certainly see the line being drawn. I would not buy into that just because I think now is the time where he would take it. I don't. I think it was more. I think it's been pretty well chronicled about what, especially with the most recent Sports Illustrated article about him, how he basically abused his body with the Navy SEAL training. The back stuff, I don't think the back stuff is related to any performance-enhancing stuff. I think the history of golfers with back injuries is just too great to draw that conclusion. But, I can see where the line is drawn from one to the other. I can't dispute that.
You know the golf swing as well as anybody. Do you think the Navy SEAL training where he put 20 pounds of muscles on in his upper body did more to hinder his career, or do you think it was more of the torque he put on his body with that swing he had when he was younger?
Combination of both. I think the knee issues he had were probably from the training, more so than the swing. But our boy Brandel Chambly has a new book out. It's called The Anatomy of Greatness. He basically broke down every great player's golf swing, and he looked at similarities. And they all have, except for Tiger and Nick Faldo, they all have the same similarity, and that is the front, or the lead foot, I should say, off the ground in the backswing, allowing for the tension on the back and certainly the legs to be released. Tiger and Faldo are the only ones who didn't do that. I know he also says in the book, or he's been on record, Jason Day wouldn't make it past age 35. He's 28 now, I think, 27, and he's already had 5-6 injuries, and most recent is a back problem. He says he has a bulging disc, so I think there's something to that. And I haven't read the book yet. I plan on doing it the next week or so, next 2 weeks. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I think the modern golf swing translates to power, but that power is not natural to the body.
You had mentioned perhaps one more run of Tiger greatness, or him coming alive in a major. Would you bet on that?
If I'm getting good odds, I think I might. Especially at Augusta, just because he knows the place so well. If he takes a full year off, even if he just slaps it around off the tee, if he can sharpen his wedge game to where it used to be, his putting is never going to be what it was. No one has ever gotten better as a putter as they've gotten older. All of the greats lose their putting touch. If you watched the '86 special last night, Jack talked about how much he struggled with the putter prior to that tournament. But if he can regain some semblance of his old short game and 150-yard in wedge game, I see no reason why he can't compete at Augusta.
You had said all along, leading up to this, you didn't think he was going to play. I, deep down, didn't think he was going to play, but part of me was hoping so that we may be able to see a Jack-like run. You had mentioned the 97 Masters being one of your favorites. How great would it be 20 years later if Tiger's on 16 or 17 and we hear this? Just like Jack in '86.
I think the lore would grow even bigger, and I think we're almost. Might not be with him. Maybe it's with Phil. I think if it's Phil or Tiger, though, I think we're kind of priming ourselves for that. '86 is a long time ago now, so I think we're kind of due for another moment like that.
Well, you had brought up Phil. Give me your thoughts on him this week.
I mean, look, his record is unbelievable. It's ridiculous how good he is there. Loves the place. He is coming in playing better than he has probably in 5 years. He played great here last year, but I think it's just you expect him to play well. He's playing well. He played well in Houston last week. He even admitted that he was hitting tee shots last week with a driver, visualizing holes at Augusta. Even though he was hitting balls into the water on the course he was playing, he didn't care because he was visualizing tee shots at Augusta National. So I think that tells you all you need to know about Phil. I worry a little bit about his putter, especially if he gets into contention. He's fiddling around with different grips still. I would like to see him commit to something, to stick with it. I think he'll be there. It's just he just is too good at this place. He knows too much. I think he will be there on Sunday. I have a tough time believing he's going to win. We haven't had a 40-plus-year-old winner in almost 20 years now. So I think it's going to be tough for him, but, don't count him out for sure.
Any value on him I'm seeing currently 18-1.
There's a little bit I would love to see him more at like the 25 to 1. I think that's where the real value would be. It's a little bit expensive with the stats going against him. There's probably a couple other guys I'd rather have at that number anyway.
I don't know what the numbers are. I couldn't find it, but I'll put the question to you. Day, Spieth, McIlroy, Scott, and Bubba. Them or the field? Who you taking?
Oh boy! I think I would go. I would go with them. There's some intriguing picks outside of them, but I think if you're giving me even money with those guys, I'd take that.
Of those five, who you leaning? Jason Day currently 13 to 2. Spieth and Rory 8 to 1. Adam Scott and Bubba 11 to 1.
I'll take the last two if you're giving me two out of those. I'll take Bubba and Adam Scott. Bubba obviously has won here twice. Scott's won here once. The win probably will affect Bubba a little more. You never know, though. Sometimes stuff like that, a player that creative, sometimes they kind of like that difficult course setup. He's played well in the win before. Doral, most notably. He always plays well at Doral, and it's always windy there. Adam Scott has the ability to move his trajectory around. I think I would take those two. They're probably the best two ball strikers of that group, statistically. So I'll take those two out of those bets. Jason Day as the favorite. You know, look, he's number one player in the world. He's coming in on fire. He's got a really high ball flight. He's had mixed results here, some high finishes, some not so good. And I'm not sure how he'll react to having all the pressure on him being the favorite. I know he's tried to deflect that this week, saying he's not the favorite, but, you know, it's hard to ignore. It's hard to hear the media talk about it and not believe it, so we'll see.
In that next tier, you tell me where you see the value. Ricky Fowler 14 to 1, Dustin Johnson 18 to 1, Rose 22 to 1, Stenson 25 to 1, and Oosthuizen 28 to 1.
You'll see a ton of people on Louis this week. I'm kind of in between on him. I liked him a couple of weeks ago at the match play when we had that pod. Some of his numbers though worry me coming into this week. Out of that group, if the win isn't that bad, I really like the value on Justin Rose. His past history is so much better than people give him credit for. I was actually surprised looking it up myself. He's never missed a cut, 10 for 10. He has 8 top 25s in those 10 starts, second last year. So those are pretty safe numbers. If you like safe bets, Justin Rose would be the guy if the weather cooperates. And then I like Fowler this year a lot. I know I've been down on him since the day he turned pro. I've never really liked him. I always thought he could have been so much better than what he is if he had that Spieth Tiger-like desire. But, you know, he's starting to learn how to win, and I think he's a really, really good tough course, tough weather player. He kind of thrives in that environment, and he's proved that he can close the deal when he's in contention.
The next three I think are all interesting. At 33 to 1, you have Hideki Matsuyama, and at 35 to 1, Patrick Reed and Charles Schwartzel.
I like all three of them. I'm glad you brought up Charles. If you gave me some kind of odds where I was getting better money on Charles and Louis as the low South African, I would take Charles. He's played really well this year, kind of flying under the radar. And then Patrick Reed, if it gets tough, you know, low ball flight, hits a hook, really good short game. His putting hasn't been great this year, but something like this, I can't see him not stepping up. And then Matsuyama, he's built for this course, tee to green. The weather aspect is a little worrisome with him, but tee to green, he has the ability to dominate on this golf course. His issue would be the putter and the wind.
There's a cluster here at 55 to 1, and then I'm just going to pick some names out, and you tell me your thoughts on them. But at 55 to 1, we have Snedeker, Brooks Koepka, Zach Johnson, Sergio, and Jimmy Walker.
So out of those, Zach's past champion. Bad weather, I like him a lot more. If the par fives become unreachable for most of the field, then it becomes a wedge contest, and he's one of the best at those. So bad weather, like him. Good weather, don't. Snedeker, same exact thing. Out of that group, the two names that stick out to me, Brooks Koepka didn't have a good week last week, but I think his game fits really well on this course. And I think a sneaky long shot pick here is Jimmy Walker. No one has said his name except for you all week. He's a really good putter, and he's very long off the tee. People don't give him credit for being long, but he can really get it out there. And he's from Texas, so the wind will not bother him at all.
Now I'll just pick some names out as the odds get a little higher. You give me your thoughts and if you think there's any value on them. Danny Will at 60-1.
A month ago, I would have liked him a little more. His wife gave birth last week, so you would know better than I how that will affect him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different animal when you're talking about a major, but expectations could be low, which could be a good thing for him.
Yeah, freewheeling it. I don't know. Is he rested? Is he focused? I don't really know how that works, but I like his game.
Casey and Kuchar, 60-1, and Kuchar at 66-1.
Kuchar's a sneaky one. He before last year, I think he was 45th last year, but before that, he had 3 straight top 10s. He hasn't missed a cut here since back in 2002, I guess his rookie year. So he's one of those guys, if you play in the daily fantasy games, I think he's a safe play. And his short game, pretty ratty, scrambling and putting. So kind of the guy I would like to lean on a little bit as a safe play.
Mark Leishman, 70-1.
I mentioned him to Tundra Dan earlier this week. I don't know if the winds are going to be that severe, but he's one of the best big-time wind players in the world. He had a 4th place here a couple of years ago. So if the winds really become a problem, I would expect to see him sneak up a little bit.
Bill Haas, 80-1.
He does not have, shockingly, his major success is pretty bad. If you're talking about kind of big names that don't have a ton of success in majors. But if you look at his record on this course, his first appearance was in 2010, 26th. He's never missed a cut here. And the last 4 years, he's kind of trended better, 37th, 21st, 20th, 12th last year. So another one of those guys that seems to really like the golf course.
Kevin Kisner at 100-1.
Boy, I really wanted to like Kevin Kisner, and I think he's kind of a Zach Johnson. He's got a little more pop than Zach Johnson, but if it does become a wedge contest and a putting contest, he just hasn't played well recently. That's the only drawback I have. But 100-1 with him is pretty good with that golf swing.
Ryan Moore at 100-1.
I like that one. Now he won't go for many of the par fives, even if it's not windy. But very strong off the tee. He won't be in the trees that much or the pine straw. He'll be hitting from a lot of fairways. He was really hot with the putter in Austin at the match play. He's very good with the wedges. So I think if he can continue that putting, that's a sneaky play there, especially if you can find him like a top 10 bet maybe.
Harris English at 125-1.
All the game in the world. I loved him coming out of college. Local boy, UGA grad, but not playing too well at the moment, so I would avoid Harris English.
Billy Horschel at 150-1.
You would think Ryder Cup year that something was gonna happen, some kind of spark. I thought he was the perfect Ryder Cup player, but new clubs, he's shown some flashes, just hasn't put it together yet. Such such a good ball striker. I could see him hanging around a little bit, but I'm not sure the short game is good enough for him to be a real contender here.
I have to. Angel Cabrera, 175 to 1.
Give me some names that are around Angel Cabrera.
G-Mac, 175 to 1. And here's another guy I was going to ask you about, Marty Keimer, 175 to 1. The other 175 to 1s are Dubison, Emiliano Grillo, Russell Knox, Chris Kirk, and
there we go. If you gave me all 7 of those players, give me Chris Kirk. Sort of a local guy. He hits it right to left. He's been playing very well the last month after coming off of hand surgery last year. Good short game. 2 pretty good finishes at the Masters in his only 2 starts. I'll take my boy Chris Kirk over your boy Angel Cabrera.
Wow, the podcast has just taken a turn for the worst.
There comes a point where I like the sleepers like Cabrera, but once everyone is on them, I go the other way.
You know that there's something magic when Cabrera steps on that green lush grass in Augusta.
That was the first time I heard his name was last week when I think he was, I don't know where he finished, but he was 2 under after a few holes, and you spotted it quickly.
It's like a switch. He just flips it once the calendar turns to April.
He's going to have to flip it quickly because if you just look at him, if you just take away his picture and his name, if you look at his numbers, they are really bad. And, he's had some good finishes at Augusta, but he's also had a lot of missed cuts as well.
For comedic purposes, there's that commercial on TV right now with the Hoopers that has all the basketball players living in a house, the NBA guys. Well, there's a house.
Yeah.
There's a house that's a commercial for this podcast that's called the Stoopers. Bob Stoops, Roy Williams, Bryce Johnson, and Hunter Mahan all live there. Your thoughts on
Hunter Mahan's a great addition to that house.
He's 200 to 1.
If I pick 2 big names that aren't going to do anything this week, it's Hunter Mahan and Marty Keimer.
Yeah, Hunter Mahan, 200 to 1.
No chance.
Moving along.
We'll go back to the kids thing. Him and his wife have 2 kids now, young. He has completely fallen off the face of the golfing map.
Moving along, Bryson DeChambeau, 250 to 1.
I love this kid. Some people think he's quirky and weird and they don't like all the science, but every time I listen to him talk, he just believes in what he does. He doesn't give a shit what people think. He's not there to make friends. He's just there to swing like a machine, and I would not be surprised to see him make the cut, especially if the conditions get tough, and maybe be on that first page on the weekend.
We had a source close to us who was at the practice round and told us to watch out for Alphabet. He's 250 to 1. Your thoughts?
They have a jacket already. It's, the Walrus won, so they have one that fits him at least already.
Last week, I must have heard 3 or 4 times how Donald Trump saved Jim Herman's career.
Yeah?
Don't you think it would be very beneficial and behoove Jim Herman to put Donald Trump on his bag this week?
I'm not sure why it hasn't already happened. It's a pretty good story. But he was wearing Trump's logo for a while. I didn't see it on him last week. I don't know if they're still together or what, still business partners, but I heard that they play frequently still together. Herman said he takes his money frequently, so maybe Trump is too tempted to put his name in to the starters team instead of looping for Herman.
Just a couple other here quickly. Ernie Els, 300 to 1.
The videos last year of maybe some of the worst yips that I've seen, with the exception of our buddy Chidlowski. Ernie Els had him just as bad last year, maybe worse. I would be terrified if I was Ernie Els this week.
That's going to be devastating to Sedlowski's psyche. I get a text every week after the podcast of something he's picked up on. He's going to be devastated.
We've chatted a little bit, and I know he just got a new punter. So maybe that has changed his fortunes around.
Another traditional guy, VJ Singh, 500 to 1.
I was building a DraftKings team this morning, and I thought about VJ long and hard. He is a cut maker here, especially at age 50 plus. He still is making cuts. He has not played well this year, but it's tough to play well as a 52-year-old on the PGA Tour. If I was betting on one of those long shots to make a cut, I would rather have him at even money than G-Mac, Keimer, or Mahan. I think I'd take Singh in the upset.
We talk about a worthy champion all the time with Stuart Sink. Speaking of the most unworthy champion, Mark O'Meara, 2000 to 1.
The last 40-plus-year-old to win it. I think he finished. I have a spreadsheet here. He finished T22 last year, so I would think twice before speaking ill about Mark O'Meara.
I know that you had some inside information, so I'm going to throw this name out there. Mike Weir at 2000 to 1.
I'm actually shocked that he's playing. He's had a rough go the last 4 or 5 years. He was an underrated player back in the day. He's won 8 times on the tour. Obviously, he's a major winner. But I think 10 years ago or so, he went to that stack and tilt, and since then it's kind of ruined his life. He broke par once last year in 19 starts. So if you think about that, that's 2 rounds of start. That's bordering on 10 handicap level. And they were showing live from on the range, which great watch if you've never watched live from on the range. He was swinging one-handed, hitting balls next to Bubba Watson, and he looked like a 400 handicapper.
Actually, I have just gone onto one of the sites. Mark O'Meara's over-under first-round score, 75.5.
I would have to go and check some of his recent Champions Tour starts. But that, I would have to check the weather too, but I think that's a good number. 74 doesn't seem that far-fetched for him.
He's plus 330 to make the cut. Minus 450.
The hard and fast you'd think would favor, someone like that where if it's soft, they can't get it off the tee. Based on last year, I don't think that's terrible.
Good news for the Duck lovers. Make the cut, minus 185.
What's to miss the cut?
Plus 155.
Give me some of that action. How about this? I propose our first live podcast bet between the hosts for a cocktail at the Harry. You can have him to make the cut. I'll have him to miss it.
That's a great one.
All right, deal.
Here we go. I just did find the odds with those 4 or 5 guys I threw out with the field. But the cluster is Day, Spieth, Scott, Fowler at plus 180. The field at minus 220.
Day, Scott, Spieth, and Fowler?
Yes.
I'll take that 4.
Plus 180.
Yeah, I'll take that. I actually am shocked that you're getting that plus.
Day, McIlroy, Spieth, plus 200. Field, minus 240.
I'll take the field there.
All right, so give me 5 guys that you're looking at this week as the overall winner.
All right, so if we're just going to take the weather for what it is, we're not really sure. We're going to factor it in somewhat. We're not going to make it the end-all, be-all, but it's got to be somewhat of a factor. Spieth, your defending champion. I know he's not, been Tiger Woods lately, but he hasn't been that bad. It seems like he's one of those guys like Tiger, Phil, the Duck, Jack. Just, this place does something to him. So I think you'll see a different player this week. Adam Scott, I think he's the best all-around player in the game right now, especially with the weather. I think he might be one of the safer guys. Speaking of safe, Justin Rose would be my third. His record speaks for itself. Hasn't missed a cut. 8 of 10 in the top 25. And then my last two in my five would be Fowler and Rory. I'm going to stick with the ball striking theme. All those guys just hit the crap out of their ball. They can play it both ways if they have to, but I'm leaning on the side of total, tee to green game rather than that one aspect. He's a good putter, he's a good iron player, et cetera, et cetera. If the weather were different, Bubba would be number one on my list. But with the cold and with the wind, he's a fragile guy. I worry about him having a bad 9-hole stretch day one and quitting on me.
Give me 3 of the bigger names that you would stay away from.
We've talked about some, but Keimer, Mahan, GMAC, but those aren't the big names everyone wants to hear. So I'm going to go out on a limb. Sneds, great putter. You'd think it'd be a good course fit, but not sure with the length factor. I'm not sure he has enough firepower. His iron game is not very sharp either. I think you have to be a good iron player to win around here. And right now, he's just not that good comparatively to the other players, iron game wise. I'm going to say Louis. I could get burned with that one, but I'm going to say stay away from Louis. He looked terrible last week in Houston. It could just be fatigue from the match play. That's a long week, a lot of matches, a lot of golf. But he looked really bad last week. And some of his numbers, too, if you dig deeper, especially with the irons and the scrambling numbers, are very, very bad. And then lastly, could definitely get burned with this one, but I'm going to say avoid Jason Day. I like to not take the guy that everyone expects to win. If you read every other article out there, he's at the top of every rankings. I'm surprised they haven't had the ceremony yet to get in the jacket at this point. A lot of pressure. He's a high ball hitter. I don't know. Just something in my gut is saying it's too obvious.
And now, your winner.
I went back and forth. Those 5 guys that I mentioned that I like, I can see all of them winning. I really wanted to take Ricky Fowler. I think his time is coming soon. But I'm going to go Adam Scott. I just think his iron game is really good. He's number 1 on tour in par 5 scoring average. It's long been known you got to beat the par 5s up to win at Augusta. And even if the wind blows, let's say 13 and 15 and 8 aren't reachable, he's the 5th best player from inside 125 on tour. So he's a great wedge player too. So he can play it either way. And his putting, like I said earlier, it's much improved. I just think if he can give himself more opportunities than everybody else and hit more greens in regulation, that's the recipe to win. Not missing greens and having to get up and down every other hole. So I'm going to come on, Ozzy.
So we finished NFL, college football, and college basketball at 31 and 26, riding Nova those last 2 games. We'll tweet out any head-to-head matchups or anything we like for the official picks. Anything else you want?
There will probably be 5 or 6 day one that me, you, and Tundra put our heads together, head-to-head in top 10 bets, I think.
With the weather being real ugly, perfect weekend to sit in front of the TV. Give me the beer of choice for the weekend.
Oh man, I haven't been to the store. I'm going after this. Flying Dog has a couple of brew house specials. They have a mint julep ale It sounds very Mastersy to me, so I think I'm going to try that. They have a habanero IPA that is now out, so I'm going to try that. And then I'll probably pick up a case of Two Hearted just because that's the go-to.
I do have Two Hearted sitting in the fridge. Let me throw another one out there. Oscar Blues. It's an IPA. It's called Pinner. Absolutely fantastic.
We'll look for that as well then.
Quickly, just took a look and saw that the Warriors lost last night in overtime. It's become a lot more interesting with 4 games to go. Did
you happen to see their quotes after the game?
They're uninterested in the regular season.
They're bored.
So 4 games left, 69-9. Tomorrow night after the Masters coverage, 10:30, you could watch Warriors Spurs at Golden State. W?
I need to see, is Pop going to play his guys? That's, always the question with him.
I'm going to say no, but I haven't seen anything official.
Yeah. There's a little part of me that thinks there might be a little bit of motivation for San Antonio now to put an L in that column of Golden State just to, knock that momentum of the best season ever down. I could see Pop sneakily playing his guys.
Saturday they go to Memphis, 8:00 start.
Memphis can't score, so teams that can't score, they're gonna have trouble beating them.
Sunday, following your Masters, 7:00 at San Antonio with their home win streak on the line.
Yeah, that's now that I'm thinking about it, and you just said that, I think that's the game that San Antonio plays their guys.
And then Wednesday, to conclude the regular season, home against Memphis.
The question here is, if San Antonio does play their guys and they somehow do beat them, does Golden State just start resting players?
Yeah, that is interesting.
So, I think there's a couple things to think about. My gut tells me they'll beat San Antonio at home, and then they'll beat Memphis. And in that game at San Antonio, I think that's going to feel like a playoff game, in my opinion.
Quickly, your thoughts. Scottie Pippen came out and said the Bulls would sweep this Warriors team.
When are we playing this game? Are we playing it tonight, or are we playing it 18 years ago?
In today's NBA.
Today's NBA, I think it would probably be 4-1 Bulls.
How many does Jordan average in that series with no hand checking allowed?
Who guards him? Is Klay Thompson going to guard him? I guess Draymond Green, but I think the underrated part of this question, Jordan's going to score whatever he wants. I think Pippen could average 35 or 40 against the Warriors.
It would be interesting to see, because you'd expect Jordan to be on Curry, Pippen to be on Thompson, and Rodman to be on Draymond Green.
Pippen was Draymond Green, only way better. So I think that's the part that the Warriors are missing, is that Draymond Green's good, but Scottie Pippen, it was him, only a Hall of Famer.
It would be interesting to see, back in the day when Jordan was able to be hand-checked, Iguodala go against him.
Iguodala is, I think he would have been successful in that time period as well. He probably would have been a better player back then, to be honest. He probably would have been the most athletic player in the league, especially in his prime.
And then lastly, looking at the standings, Detroit has a 2-game lead over Chicago and 3.5 over Washington. Do we have the 8 set in the East, or is Chicago and Washington going to make a run?
No, I think the 8 is comfortably set.
And then
I can't express my disappointment enough. All I have to say about the Wizards is make baseball fun again.
Out west, Dallas 7 seed 39-38, Utah 8 seed 39-39, and Houston 38-39 on the outside looking in. Who is the one left out?
I'm sticking with it. I think Houston is going to sneak in and Utah is going to be left out. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, what a disaster if Houston misses the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
What an absolute disaster.
Detroit hanging in the 8th seed. I really want to see Detroit Cleveland round 1.
So do I, and I would love to, like, if there's a way to rattle Detroit before, get them mad before that series, I think they could bully Cleveland around, too.
I do as well. And I'm glad that you brought up Bryce Harper, who's trying to make baseball fun again. We're 2 days through the season. The new slide rule cost the Blue Jays a game last night, and the Yankees have protested a game because of the base running rules.
Good. I hope every team starts to protest. I love the hat. I think he's the best player that's ever played baseball ever in the history of humans. Bomb his first at bat of the year. It's just gonna be a sad day when he signs with the Yankees in a couple of years.
I meant to ask this when we were in the golf segment. So my parents came down last week and brought Braden cut down clubs, but there's no putter. So I'm gonna ask you to cut a putter down. Do I send the 2-ball down, or do I send the center shaft Odyssey down? The problem is I like to bring the center shaft Odyssey out every once in a while and put Cameron in the closet to let him know that he could be put in the closet every once in a while.
I like that strategy. I'm a big believer that you need to send them to timeout once in a while. I think it proves a point to the whole rest of the bag as well. I think you can send them the 2-ball.
Is it bad form, though, to start a 3-year-old with a 2-ball?
It's one of the most iconic clubs that's ever been made. I mean, there's Annika Sorensen putted it for 10 years almost. I think Christy Kerr still uses it. Olivia Coe uses it.
Or would I be better off going to the store and buying a bullseye type?
If you want a bullseye, I have one in my garage. I think it was a putt-putt putter, but I have one.
Yeah, I'm in a major dilemma that I need to think about this weekend. What kind of putter he's getting?
Here's the one question I would put to you. Do you really want your kid to look like Nota Begay out there?
Well, that solved it. I don't need the weekend to decide anymore.
I think you start him with the 2-ball, and it might be a club. Even if it's 29 inches or whatever, he might just be the next Robert Garrigus, where he brings it all the way up until he's 25 years old.
Well, then they need to legalize weed in New Jersey.
They probably will have it by then.
Well, when a club shows up at your doorstep, you know what to do with it. I'll give you the dimensions.
Whatever you want it'll be done in an hour.
Fantastic job by you with the Golf Masters breakdown. Should be an awesome weekend.
Yeah, that was a fun last hour plus right there. I can't wait. Even all this talk now just got me more excited.
Yeah, and we'll tweet out any official plays we make.
Yeah, disappointed that we're not together this year, but it's still going to be a blast.
We'll talk soon. Great job, bud.
You too, buddy.
See ya.